What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript, looking at the Baltimore Ravens versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this one, a special Saturday slate. We got a two-game slate, which I did a show for earlier, but this one's going to focus on the Steelers versus Ravens showdown. And I see a game with a 44.5-point total that really should not be that high, in my opinion, and I'm going to break down the slate and build some DraftKings Showdown lineups right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heatseeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript, looking at the Baltimore Ravens versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this one, we got a 44.5-point total with Pittsburgh as 6.5-point dogs in this one. It's a game where the Ravens have struggled against the Steelers throughout the history with Lamar Jackson. I believe they've only won one game since like 2020 against the Steelers. So they've definitely struggled against this team. And the Steelers are in a situation where they're missing George Pickens, their lead wideout. So it's a game where both teams should struggle on offense, you know, according to historic data. And on top of that, missing components of the offense on the Pittsburgh side. And a 44.5-point total seems a little bit high. It should be maybe a game where we go under that a little bit. The Steelers are the ones who have basically owned Lamar Jackson as well. His only game scoring under 20 DraftKings points so far this season has been against Pittsburgh. He only had 15 DraftKings points against them earlier in the season. Before I get into the breakdown here, make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes to put out my picks in the comment section of who I like best in this matchup once I have a little bit more information. I already got an underdog short out for the two-game slate, and I'll have the two-game slate breakdown already up on YouTube, so you can check that out too. Make sure to also subscribe to the channel. You're going to want to subscribe to know when these shows come out. They don't come out at any set times. It's basically, you know, kind of what the schedule leads me to. And I'm recording this one, for example, at 2:40 a.m. on Saturday after I've got all my research done. I've had a daytime, day job lately where I have a commute, so I haven't been able to get my shows done as early as I like to, or my research as early as I normally do. Shout out to Bighorn Bison, by the way, hooking me up with this sweater. I've been helping them out with their YouTube page. Bighorn Bison and Musket Powder Seasoning. A lot of good seasoning with those two companies, so make sure to check them out if you like grilling your food like I do. Very good prices on them too. You get these monster like 10-ounce bottles, and seasoning tastes great. They all got all sorts of, on the Bighorn Bison site, plateware and mugs and stuff like that as well, with a lot of cool like bison artwork on it. So check that out. Make sure to check out Underdog as well. I did a short earlier with Underdog on it. Use the promo code SEEK for a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And let's get into this breakdown. All right, so we're looking at Lamar Jackson, who has struggled against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has basically owned him for the past few years. Last game against Pittsburgh, 15.88 DraftKings points. The way, I believe it's Rich Rebar mentioned single coverage or single high coverage. I can't remember what exactly it was, but the type of defense that Baltimore runs is the type of defense that Lamar Jackson has struggled against. It's cover one, and he has struggled against the teams that use cover one at the highest rate, according to Rich Rebar, outside of the Steelers. By the way, Rich Rebar's article is free this week, so check it out at sharpfootball.com. Outside of the Steelers, the Browns and the Commanders and Raiders have used it at a high rate against Baltimore. And those are the three teams where Lamar Jackson struggled against the most. You can see it here. Versus Cleveland, he had 24 DraftKings points. Versus Washington, he had 22.9 DraftKings points. Versus Vegas, he had 17.38 DraftKings points. And then, of course, that earlier game versus Pittsburgh, he had 15.88 DraftKings points. So Lamar Jackson, kind of struggling against that that coverage. He's going to be a high-owned guy, probably the highest-owned captain on the slate as well. So maybe that gives us a good fade opportunity. Derrick Henry, or fade in the captain, I should say. Derrick Henry, maybe he picks up the slack for Lamar Jackson in this one. Pittsburgh is the number 4 defense against the running back position, against the run in general. So Derrick Henry could be in a spot where it looks bad on paper, but with the struggles that Lamar Jackson has had, maybe he does something this week. Only 11.5 DraftKings points in the last game against them. Pickens is out. Russell Wilson is going to struggle. He struggled without Pickens. He had 9.42 DraftKings points without him last week. I think Pickens being out is going to be an advantage for some of these other pass catchers. They're really thin at pass catchers on the Pittsburgh side, so maybe it benefits the running backs too. We got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, but problem is Baltimore's the number 1 the defense against the run, and they've also been playing better against the pass recently. So, like the Steelers in general are just in a bad spot here. I think the only guy with a decent matchup is going to be Pat Freiermuth. So I like him, and I did my underdog short. I went over on his yards, 35.5, I believe was the higher on that one. But I like Pat Freiermuth this week. He did have a few good weeks in a row. Looks like he's picking up some steam, and then we got Pickens out on top of that. So Freiermuth is going to be interesting in this game. Low-scoring game. Freiermuth could be a potential captain option as well. Calvin Austin should benefit as well from Pickens being out. We saw him get 5 targets last week, but he's been getting a uptick in targets in general this season. He's had a couple weeks over 20 DraftKings points. So Calvin Austin is going to be interesting. Baltimore's defense was struggling against wide receivers earlier in the season, but they've definitely corrected that. They're only allowing 21 DraftKings points a game to wideouts and 10.4 to slots. So keep that in mind with Calvin Austin. Let's move back up here. Looking at Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, I believe, is going to have the better matchup against the Steelers, who are giving up 26 DraftKings points a game in the last 4 games to wideouts. They've been susceptible. It's going to set up Zay Flowers to have a decent game. This is probably some of the stuff that's leading into the situation where we're seeing Baltimore with a pretty big spread there at 6.5 points with Russell Wilson without George Pickens and his struggles, and then on top of that, the way that Pittsburgh's defense has been struggling against wideouts. They are playing in Baltimore, so they're playing on home turf this year, this season, this freaking week as well. So Zay Flowers, interesting there. I'm according to fantasy points coverage, it looks like Joey Porter is going to be shadowing Rashod Bateman, so that's also going to set up Zay Flowers maybe to have the better matchup in this game. Najee Harris, talked about him a little bit earlier. Tough matchup, but he gets usage in the passing game. Looking at 1 target last week, he's had 6 targets, 5 targets, 4 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. Getting a lot of usage, but the guy I'd like more, I think, is Warren. with the team looking like they're going to have to pass a lot and missing that George Pickens weapons, 5 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets, 4 targets. 4 targets the last game against Baltimore had 10.8 DraftKings points. In a low-scoring game, that could be enough for him to make an optimal this week. Najee in that last game against Baltimore had 13, so he got a decent amount of usage in that one too. Bateman, on paper, he's interesting, but we want to see if he's going to be shadowed. But the wideout position getting 26 DraftKings points a game versus Baltimore makes Bateman also in play this week. Andrews, the safety is out for the Pittsburgh side. I went into that more in depth in my 2-game slate, but that's making Andrews and Likely both interesting this week. Likely with Nelson Aguilar is also out. Likely runs some of his routes in the slot. I do think that that is going to make Likely interesting this week as well. Last game against Pittsburgh, he had 10.5 DraftKings points. We got both the kickers are going to be interesting in a low-scoring game like this. Freiermuth, talked about him. He is in a good spot. Justice Hill is going to be in a good spot with the defense being good against the run, but a little bit more susceptible to pass-catching backs, and Derrick Henry just doesn't catch any balls. Both defenses should be in play this week, maybe a little bit less so on the Steelers side. Looking at 4,400 and 3,600, so they're both cheap. So Mike Williams going to be in play with Pickens out, and so will Van Jefferson, but to a lesser extent, maybe Van Jefferson. He has not done much with opportunity this season, but he could always poach a touchdown, especially in a low-scoring game. Basically, in a low-scoring game like this, any one of these guys who gets any type of opportunity is going to be in play. Tylan Wallace is a guy I'm interested in. With Nelson Aguilar out, I think maybe he gets a decent amount of work, and he's at 1K. Pittsburgh is only giving up 8.2 DraftKings points a game to the slot position, so they're more vulnerable to wideouts in general. But let's build this. Let's build a few lineups. My battery on my computer is about to die. I'm going to go with Zay Flowers as my first captain option. Going to assume that Lamar Jackson has some struggles in this one, but Zay Flowers is getting PPR action. I'm going to go with Jackson over Henry in this one, just assuming that Jackson might need to run a little bit more. Russell Wilson he's an out for me. I'm going to go with Jaylen Warren in this one. I like these tight ends, like I talked about. I'm going to put Andrews in first. And I like Boswell because I think that they're going to struggle to score touchdowns on the Pittsburgh side. This could be a double kicker week. You could put Tucker in there. If we wanted to put Freiermuth in there, like I like Freiermuth. That's going to get us to Likely with leaving salary on the table, which might be a good way to go with Zay Flowers and the captain. If we wanted to put Likely in there, you could swap out Zay Flowers. I think you could swap him out for Jackson and the captain. If you think that Jackson is able to overcome those matchup woes, you can get Flowers in there in that situation. Now, if we want to do something a little different, if you like the studs in this one, you think the game goes over the total, let's put Likely in that captain. No, let's put Andrews in that captain. Andrews just gets more usage. Let's put Andrews in there. Let's get Jackson, Henry. Going to skip Wilson in this one too. Let's get Flowers. Let's go with Warren in this one too. Oh, that doesn't leave us with much. So let's put Likely in the captain. That leaves us with 4,800. If we have Likely in the captain, puts us in Calvin Austin range. Ravens defense um, all these different options. If we want to go instead of Warren, Boswell, 6,600. You could go double tight end, put Andrews in there. You get Freiermuth in this way. This might be the way to go. That way we get Freiermuth and Boswell in there. Jalen Warren's the other Steeler that I kind of like this week. Not liking a whole bunch on the Steelers side, except for those three guys. On the Baltimore side, I'm liking the tight ends, and I like Zay Flowers, potential matchup. You could also use Bateman instead of Flowers. I probably wouldn't use two wide receivers this week, but I do like those two options. And I'm going to leave it at that, guys. Make sure to hit the like button. When I have more complete thoughts, I'll leave it in the comments section when I hit 30 likes. Subscribe to the channel. You're going to want to subscribe and sign up for the alerts to get alerts when these videos are dropping. And make sure to hit the subscribe to help me get to 1,400, which I'm trying to get to by the end of week 16. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you a little bit later on.